I just want to introduce our speaker today. Her name is Denise Kimber, my wife, and she is the vice president of Utah Youth Village. She is a behaviorist. She has a bachelor's degree in psychology. And what she's going to be teaching today is how to help your children, well, how to help you as a parent, help your children do what you want them to do, basically something like that. So the title of the course is, if I can read that, Parenting Positively Under Any Circumstances. So I think the skills you learn today will be incredibly helpful. So Denise Kimber.
He said he was introducing me, and I said, this is embarrassing. This is not how conferences usually go for me, and I speak a lot. So he did tell you that I'm a behaviorist. So I actually started with Utah Youth Village working as a families first specialist. And that means that I went into families' homes that have been referred for neglect or abuse and taught parents parenting skills and taught kids pro-social skills to keep kids in the home and keep them from going to foster care. Usually with families who generally don't want you at the beginning. They're not super happy to see you. And, but then by 12 weeks later, when you're getting ready to leave, they really don't want you to go. So the skills that that we'll talk about a little bit today, and then I'll show you some things about, are skills that I have seen work hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times with kids who are far, far extreme behaviors that you probably can't even imagine. In Utah Youth Village, we have multiple programs. One of the programs we have is treatment foster care. So it's kids who failed out of 3 levels of foster care before they came to us. Really extreme behaviors. I staff behaviors of those kids every day, all day. So when we talk about kids' behaviors, there's nothing that you could say in this room that would be a surprise to me, and I could say a whole lot of things that would probably be super surprising to you. But I won't. I won't give you that kind of secondary trauma. I follow the teaching family model, which is out of the University of Kansas. It started in about the early 1960s, is very evidence-based, tons and tons and tons of research about the teaching family model. And that is where my behavioral base comes from. It's trauma-informed, it's very individualized, it fits a whole lot of things that I really believe are exactly follow the gospel. And I think that's why it resonates so well for me, because it's all about allowing our kids to have and use their agency, and us following through really consistently with consequences, very much like Heavenly Father does, in a really loving way. And sometimes that's the hard part, right? It's the really loving way when you really don't like what's going on. And I have been on that end of the spectrum too. I did not learn these skills until I was in my 40s, and my kids were grown. They come in really handy when my kids call and say, Mom. It is kind of the joke on the way here. We were talking to my son, and he said, and he was telling Kelly, well, if Mom's not letting you do all the fun things that you want, like go to In-N-Out for every meal, you should just come here, because we can always go to In-N-Out for every meal. And I said, that's not fair. You do all the fun things with Kelly, and then you're like, hey, can you tune up my kids while you're here? And that's kind of how it goes at our house. I firmly believe that we all can change our behavior. And I know that you know that, because I'm guessing you've changed your behavior in your lifetime, right? Have you ever adjusted your sleep schedule, changed eating habits, worked out, not worked out, ran, not ran, all kinds of things that we say we're going to do, and then we do, and then we don't, then we do, and then we don't. We're not perfect at it. We're not perfect in any of it. And parenting is one of those things too. But it is, behavioral skills are things that we can all learn. They're things that you can teach your kids, and they're things that you can adjust yourself. And that's the good news. The other good news is that as we change our behaviors, we actually change our brains. So things that we weren't capable of doing at one point in time, we can practice, 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 and then become really good at. And I'm sure you've had experiences like that as well. So, I mean, do you ever wake up on Saturday the same time that you wake up the rest of the week, even if you don't have to? Still 6:30, no matter what. Even if I go to bed later, I'm still waking up at 6:30, because that's a habit I've practiced, right? And so it just becomes easy. It becomes natural behavior. And so all the things that we'll talk about today, I want you to think about that. So how many of you have children that have behaviors that maybe 1 or 2 of your kids' behaviors you don't really love? Yeah? How about, and or your grandkids' behaviors, maybe that you don't really love? Because I use this all the time with my grandkids. So this is applicable. Honestly, this is applicable for employees' behaviors that you don't really love. This is applicable for other relationships, friends, all kinds of things. So the same exact principles apply across the board to all of our relationships. How many of you don't have as strong as relationships in some places as you wish you did? And how many of you are hoping today to get information, tools about how to change your kids' behaviors, or maybe somebody else's? So the good news is that we are going to talk about that. So today's class is kind of set up like this. A few minutes of information, and I'm going to just talk at you. And then probably at least 30 minutes of this class is going to be, tell me what you got going on and let's talk about it. And so, you be as vulnerable as you want to be. As we talk about that, feel free to share what you're struggling with your child, with your friend's child, with your sister's child, with your grandkids, with whoever else. You don't need to tell me the whole story. We probably wouldn't have time for that. But I would like, as you're thinking about this, for you to be able to label what the behavior is. So you're struggling with lying, tantruming, sneaking around, being disrespectful, skipping school, anger, withdrawal, right? There's a list. And maybe like some people are like, yes, all of those things. Great, we can talk about that. But as you're talking about it, as you tell me your thing when we get to that point, I want you to give me the age of your child. And I'm going to then ask some questions so that I can kind of get to know a little bit more, but you don't need to tell me the whole thing. The one thing that might be really helpful is how long has it been since your child lost their parent? So if that was this week or this month, maybe my answer will be a little different than if it was 2 years ago, okay? The good news today in class is we are going to talk about behaviors. We're going to talk about ways to change behaviors, and maybe we'll have a couple of slides on a video. Maybe we won't. As you can see, I've got tech support working on that. We'll see how that goes. The bad news is that the easiest, best way to change your child's behaviors or anyone else you're in relationship with is to change yours. And that's the piece, right? Everyone's like, oh, isn't it just easier? Okay, I got slides. Do I have a clicker? Okay, we're getting there. We've got slides, we've got a Zoom meeting. The people on Zoom, I really hope they can see the screen so that they see slides. We'll go from there because I can't share the screen. Also, 2 things about me. I get really thirsty when I present, so I always have my water bottle, my emotional support bottle. And also, I have a tendency to be a crier, especially at church. And so don't be surprised if I am a little bit emotional today. So I want you to good. Almost?
Yep.
Almost. So I want you to think about your relationships. Think about your relationship with the child that you're struggling with right now. And everyone's struggling with a child right now. That's just the reality. We're all struggling in some way, shape, or form with another person. And the little people that we're responsible for, our egos are the most tied into those people, right? They behave badly out in public, and it is a reflection on me completely. And so I'm very vested in fixing that. My ego is really tied into it. And no one can push your emotional triggers better than your kids. Right? They know exactly what buttons to push you over the edge, and then kind of make it seem like you're the crazy one and you're the mean one and you're the problem, even though they're the ones who are like on the edge of the cliff shoving you, right? So I want you to imagine these relationships that you have as a dance. So what happens? Cal, you want to be my partner for a second? I know this is what happened. You showed up.
Okay.
It's all right. So let's stand up here. So I'm going to lead, which seems applicable. So if I do this, what does he do? And if I move this way, what does he do? Right? He follows, he interacts with me. Okay, thanks.
Yep.
Yeah, I didn't tell him I was going to do that. Because he would hate it. I knew he'd hate it. But so what did you see? Say that again. Right. So as I moved, what happened with him? He moved, right? And do you have those kinds of relationships right now? Do you have a relationship with your child does this and you do that? And they do this and you do that, right? And some of those relationship loops are very functional and work really well. And others of those kind of relationship dances are not so great. He does this, I do this, he does this, I do this. We're both frustrated, angry, hurt, right? And then what do we do about that? How are you resolving that currently? Anybody talk about it? Anybody lecture about it? Anybody sit and talk to your child about that and tell them how you want them to behave differently next time? I've done that hundreds of times. And does it always work? Because when he does that and I do this, every time, what's he going to do? Right? We're still in that same dance. And so the way to change that loop, that dance, is for me to change my steps. Because when I change my steps, if I suddenly started foxtrotting with Kelly up here, which he would be very disconcerted about, but if that's what I did, right, he would, maybe if we had waltzed for years, he would keep trying to waltz, right? So this isn't going to happen immediately. He'll keep trying to waltz. But number two, if I kept foxtrotting, he would start trying to foxtrot with me because I changed. And that's the first piece of changing your kids, is changing the way you interact with them. So one of the things I want to talk about today is how to increase those positive interactions that you're having. Because the real reality is this: there's only 24 hours in a day. And in a 24-hour span, if I have 15 hours of positive things that are happening at home, then I'm not left with a whole lot that is not going well, right? And so instead of trying to always focus on the negative and fix that thing and tell your kids what they're doing wrong and tell them how you want them to change it and fix that thing and fix that thing and fix that thing, maybe just increasing more of what's going right, focusing my attention on what's going right, acknowledging what's going right, spending more time in the what's going right, it's just going to give you less time in the what's going wrong. It's going to increase your positive relationships. And with that, you're going to get more positive interactions, right? We all want to be around people who make us feel good about ourselves. That's just the truth. So we're going to watch a video. You want to pull me up? Oh, I guess you gave me a clicker. Go on. See, will you click in and see if the video will go? We're keeping our fingers crossed.
Hi, my name is Hillary, and I'm the mother of 2 active boys and a wonderful daughter. And I'm going to teach you something that will blow your mind. Kids act out and misbehave. When that happens, parents want to punish them. I know that I did. Turns out constantly punishing my 3 kids made things worse. I learned about effective praise, and at first it didn't seem natural, and I thought it would give them permission to act out, but boy, was I wrong. I always want my kids to know I see and appreciate the good things they're doing. The result of effective praise is that my kids act out less, they have more self-confidence, and they actually like me because I'm not mad at them all the time. I'll tell you more about that later. The steps to effective praise are: 1. Show your approval or find a positive. Let your child know they did something right. You can learn how to do this, even if your child needs to be corrected. 2. Describe the positive behavior. Describe specifically what they did right. Once they know, they have a better idea of what to do again. Use the skill of observe and describe on the Smarter Parenting website to help you. 3. Give a meaningful reason. If it's meaningful to your child, they will do it again. 4. Now this one is optional. Give a reward. Sometimes it's okay to give a reward to strengthen the connection between positive behavior and good outcomes. You'll know when it's appropriate. Let's watch two families. Oh, good job, Peter. The mom acknowledged what Peter did, and that's a good first step. Because the praise was so vague, Peter doesn't know if he did something well or if his mom is just in a good mood. Lots of parents give general praise like, good job, fantastic, great, keep up the good work. That type of praise isn't effective. Let's watch again.
Peter, I'm so glad you shared your cookie. Because you shared your cookie, now your brother can have some cookie and he'll share his toys with you.
The mother did a great job. She described what Peter did well and explained why doing that behavior is important by using something that was meaningful to Peter, playing with his brother's toys. Let's watch another example. This time, we're going to see a dad praise his daughter even though the task isn't finished.
Great job cleaning up the car. After your friends made a mess of it, you're still going to vacuum, right?
Well, I've been a little busy cleaning everything else up, so yeah.
The father praises and then drops the ball. He didn't give a reason why it was meaningful to his daughter that she should clean the car. Let's watch again.
Wow, good job cleaning up the trash. Looks like you just have a little vacuuming left. You know, when you're cleaning up the car nice, I'm more likely to let you borrow it. Come get me when you're done.
Okay. Well, so Katie and Megan wanted to go to the movies tonight, and I was wondering.
You wanted to take the car out.
Yeah.
Well, you did a great job vacuuming. So, yeah, you can take the car out.
Yes.
This time, the father did all the steps. He recognized what was hard for her. He described what she did well. He gave a reason why it was important to her and also gave her a reward. She earned being able to use the car next time she wanted. It may not seem intuitive to praise your children when it seems like there's nothing to praise, but let me share my experience with you. Learning to find what my children did right and praising them has made all the difference in my kids' success and their love for me. It's easy to fall into a pattern of criticism. I used to feel like my job as the parent was to point out all of my kids' mistakes so that they would somehow appreciate my fault finding and fix it. For me, criticism felt natural and genuine. In truth, it was destroying my relationship with them. As I looked for the things they did right and praised them for it, it changed my attitude about my kids and the way they felt about me. I had to learn to open my mouth when they did good things and give up on nitpicking. They started doing the things I wanted them to do more often. At first, my efforts to effectively praise felt phony to me. Finding the good in my children was hard at first simply because I wasn't practiced at it. The more I effectively praised them, the easier it got. Now it's very natural. I changed from a critically focused mother to a praise-oriented mother 2 years ago. Everyone in my family is grateful for the change of heart, especially me. We are a loving, close family now. Learning to effectively praise was the best thing that happened for me as a parent. Use effective praise. It changed everything for me and my family, and I know it'll help you too. Visit Smarter Parenting for materials, resources, and strategies to help you with the skill of effective praise.
I think that touched us. Just put it over there. I think that's what happened.
She's always right.
Hi, my name is. Hi.
That's not showing up up there. Okay, so um, effective praise is something that was kind of new for me when I started learning about this. Not that I didn't ever praise my kids. I feel like I praised my kids, but in the teaching family model, we praise at a 4-to-1 ratio. So finding 4 things that are going well to every one thing that you're criticizing. And frankly, that's harder than you would imagine when you first start, right? Because it's super easy to walk into a room where your kids are fighting and immediately see that fire, right? Those things come to you. But effective praise is usually things that you have to pay more attention for. You walk into a room and your kids are getting along really nice and you think, yeah, I'm gonna just skip right past that and go make dinner, right? Great. There's nothing I have to do there. And people are laughing, but that's just true, right? Because we kind of have a tendency to ignore the things that are going well because they don't require our attention. The things that require our attention are the things that are loud and screaming and fighting and, and giant temper tantrums and fits and behaviors that you really have concern and worry about. Those are the things where we focus most of our attention. And it requires our attention. It forces us there. Being able to find all the things that are going right really, really makes you stretch. It makes you stop and go, oh, hey guys, great job playing nice together. Great job doing your chore right away. When you do your chore right away, you have more time to play, right? Like finding, and if you notice the steps to that, in the back, there's a handout for you. I have a couple things for you today, but there's a handout that walks through the steps of effective praise and has a little example so you can practice it. When I was first learning to do this, when I was working with families in their homes, I had all the steps to skills on little cards. And I would literally encourage parents to take that card and stand and read it if they needed to. It feels uncomfortable. It feels awkward. It's like learning to ride a bike the first time, right? You don't just hop on, balance, and take off up the mountain bike hill. That's not what happens. And so it's something that you need to practice during neutral times, when you're calm, when there's not a crisis. And effective praise is a really great skill to do that because it's about taking time when there's not a crisis. Remember that change doesn't happen overnight. If I start foxtrotting, no one else is going to just jump in and suddenly be a great foxtrotter with me, right? I'm not going to be great at it either. It's going to be something that requires practice. It's going to feel uncomfortable. It's one of those things that you think, man, I hope nobody was watching that because it was a wreck, right? And that's okay. It is okay if it feels awkward, if it feels different, if it feels new. It is. It's awkward, different, and new. Like the first time you go to the gym, the first time you do a whole lot of things when you think, I don't really know how to do this, and you have to be vulnerable to say, I don't really know. It's a great, great place to be with your kids, to say, I'm trying to learn to do something different. I want us to learn to do some things different. It's a really great place. That's a kind of modeling that's what you want your kids to do, right? You want them to learn how to do different things. You want them to practice. Those are all the things we tell them. You want to be better at math, you need to practice at it. You want to be better at violin, you need to practice. You need to practice your piano or you're not going to be good at it, right? It's good modeling for you to practice with them. So the reason I picked that, we have a whole battery of skills, 50 skills that I know. The reason I picked effective praise is I think it's the most important skill that really does change your relationship with your kids. That it's really, really, really easy to critique. It's really easy to fault find. It's really easy to know the things that are bugging you, that you hate, that you don't trust, that you're worried about, that you're concerned with. Those are all right there. But the relationship building piece is telling them all the things that they're doing right. It makes a huge, huge difference in any relationship that you have. So now's the part where you guys get to ask me all the questions. Tell me what you want to know. Yeah. Uh-huh.
she's been sick all the time.
Okay.
He does. I have to do my school online.
Okay.
He's got headaches. He can't do it. He's like a year and a half behind in school.
Ugh.
And this is because his headaches are not controllable. And I'm just really worried about what I can do. That's going to turn 18 in about 3 months.
Mm-hmm. And you aren't getting to visit him very much then. If he didn't come for Christmas, you're not seeing him regularly.
So last summer, sick, and
Real limited time.
we got sick, and we just plowed through it, and he sat on the couch downstairs watching his daughter.
And I don't know what your relationship looks like with your ex-wife. I mean, if that's something that you can talk to her about, or concerns that you share with her, if that's something that she would make any changes about. The hard thing in that is you don't really have the opportunity to do a whole lot that's going to make a difference, because you don't have the opportunity to spend a lot of time with him. Now, I would say that if you're doing Zoom calls, you're doing, FaceTime, those kinds of things with him regularly, I would really, really reinforce the positive things that he is doing, right? So if he's doing some school, he's behind, but he's doing some school, maybe set up some kind of a schedule with him. So, hey, this week, how many things are you going to get done? Great. If you get this many things done this week, then you and I can do this in Zoom chat, or I'll send you a treat, or, find something that's rewarding to him, that some way to motivate him to do what you're wanting him to do. It's much harder in your situation because you're not with him every day. So it's hard to make behavioral changes because those are the things require practice, and practice just requires proximity.
When you're 18, would it make sense for me to try to encourage him to come here?
Sure. 18 is far, far from too late. So let me just tell you that the teen brain starts rewiring at the beginning of puberty. So your 10-year-old who you're like, you know better than that. Your 12-year-old, your 14-year-old, your 16-year-old, they're just dumb, right? And the reason for that is this. This is why they appear that way to you. Their brain is rewiring, much like it was when they were toddlers. Their prefrontal cortex, this piece right here behind your forehead, is your logic and reasoning part of your brain. And that's basically offline for a lot of puberty. So that 10-year-old who made really good choices turns into that 14-year-old who's like, oh no. You're like, well, what did you think was going to happen? Oh no, right? Because they're not consequentially thinking, because that piece of their brain is not really fully functioning. That does not actually, that rewiring completes when the long bones of our bodies are fully grown. So about 25. So 18 is far from, oh, well, you're lost. 18 is still real prime growing time, prime changing the brain time. And the reality is that as we practice new behaviors, we grow new neural pathways, and we literally change our brains. So I would say absolutely encourage him to come live with you. Absolutely encourage new behaviors in him. It's far, far from the point where his brain is hardwired in certain paths. And the rest of our lives we can change, right? But it's a whole lot easier to learn Spanish at 17 or 19 when you head on a mission than it is at 45. And that's because our brains are not growing at that rate that they were when we were in our teens or in our toddler years. Little tiny kids pick up language like nobody's business, right? And that's because their brains are rewiring. So far from too late, lots of time still you have to work with him. And I would highly encourage him to come and live with you where you can make a difference. But between now and then, maybe you can find some virtual ways you can do that. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay. So a 15-year-old that's withdrawing into her phone. And so let me just say, super developmentally normal. 15-year-olds are wanting to pull away from parents. And that comes from hundreds of years ago when 12 or 14, we literally left and became parents on our own, right, through puberty. So there is that natural development that's happening. As far as managing the phone and not wanting the power struggle about it, this is what I will tell you. 100% manage the phone. Absolutely. No one 15, 16, 17 should have unlimited access, unlimited whatever, have their phone all night in their room, all those things. No. My personal experience, and I have a ton of it, is that your best bet is to, your kids plug your phones in your room at night, that you understand what social media they're on, you have their access, their password, that they understand that they can't erase things off their phone. If they do, they lose it for periods of time and short periods of time, right? You have deleted stuff off your phone, so you lose it for the next 3 days, because they have toddler brains. And so we need immediate consequences that are small and fast, much like you did when they were toddlers, and not like you've lost it for the rest of the semester. Because if I lose it for the rest of the semester, I'm like, forget it. I'll do whatever I want then. I'm never getting it back, because that's never. So, but I would say every kid needs to have their phone plugged in their room. Your kid's never going to climb out their bedroom to go party with somebody because at midnight, because if their friends can't get a hold of them at midnight, that doesn't happen, right? They have to pre-plan for that, and that's a little bit harder. Teenagers aren't great at pre-planning. And if you have teenagers. Yep. If you're managing that through like the Circle or one of those kinds of internet things where their phone turns off, the only thing that's working is their alarm and their music, something like that, that's fine. That's totally fine. And I highly recommend that you have something like that, that there's some kind of internet management. Kids, again, their brains are like toddlers, right? They're super impulsive because when your prefrontal cortex isn't working, you're acting from your amygdala, which your amygdala is your fight or flight. So teenagers go from 0 to 100, right? Because they're like, what? You never, like immediately. And you're like, whoa, let's take that down a notch, right? But that's because a lot of their thinking processes happen through their amygdala rather than their prefrontal cortex. So they need immediate, like really quick reinforcement, positive rewards and negative rewards, both of those things, not long. Hey, if you do really good, then at the end of the semester, that doesn't really work well for most teens. And so that. Like I say, I think looking through your teen's phone is really important. Knowing what they're doing, knowing who they're doing it with. What I do know is that in high school, it's really common that people are airdropping porn to everybody in the room. That's happening. If the average age for kids to be exposed to pornography in the United States is 11, that's 6th grade. And that's the average. There's lots of kids that are younger than that that are being exposed to pornography accidentally through YouTube Kids. Do not trust YouTube Kids. It is not kids. There's lots of avenues to pornography from YouTube Kids. And so be aware of what your kids are watching, what they're doing. And the other thing is, so not getting in the power struggle about that looks like at 9 o'clock, maybe that automatically goes off. Or at 9 o'clock, you plug your phone in my room. If you have it in at exactly 9 o'clock tomorrow morning, as soon as you get up, you can have it back. If you don't have it in at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning, you don't get it until you get home from school. Your choice. Guess what they're going to do? Plug it in because they want their phone first thing in the morning, right? So don't power struggle. Don't try to take the phone away. Don't do that. Just simply make what you want your kids to do the easiest route. And the thing you don't want them to do, make that harder, more painful. Yeah.
She's always been, we say leadership material.
She's a strong personality.
She's a strong personality, always support, but it's starting to turn a little manipulative.
Okay.
In terms of like, she'll tell her 8-year-old brother, if you don't play this game with me, I will play that game with you.
Smart girl.
Yeah, but like,
Yep.
If then statements are fine, but she's using them in a manipulative way, that's hurtful, like with the intent to hurt him, to coerce him into doing what she wants to do.
Yep.
How would you approach that?
So a couple things I would say. While we talk about manipulation as being negative, manipulation is absolutely how all of us move through the world, right? Babies cry to get fed or to get changed or to get whatever, right? Kids behave in certain ways to get their needs met. So a couple things. When you look at kids' behaviors, always ask yourself, what need is she getting met with that, right? And maybe that's power and control, because especially when we have a loss or other things that are outside of our control, we look for control other places. That's pretty normal. So that's not abnormal behavior, right? But it's behavior you don't want and you don't like. So when you see that happen, so then you need to sit down and maybe have some pre-teaching. So when you leave, I've got a bag for you of some stuff, this bag, and it has smarter parenting. So it's www.smarterparenting.com. Preventive teaching is how you set up something with kids so that you're telling them what your expectation is, and maybe even practicing role playing with them, what that looks like, so they know exactly what you expect from them in certain circumstances. So if she's manipulating things that you don't like, then you come back and go, hey, that's not okay. You know what? When you do that, this, right? And so then you might give a consequence for that. You know what? I saw you doing that with your brother. Because you did that, you've earned a small chore, right? She doesn't want to do that. She'll stop doing that pretty quickly. Make what you want her to do more rewarding and what you don't want her to do harder. Interrupt her fun. A small chore, 11 years old. Okay, great. You need to empty the dishwasher. I don't want to do that. I know, sorry. Like, right? Okay, so, but as soon as you get that done, you can go right back to what you were doing, right? Like, and I'm not doing it. Okay, well, no TV. Nope, no extra snacks. Nope, all of that's off the table until you've done your consequence. But I'm not going to power struggle with you until you do it. You go sit on your bed for the next 4 hours and great. When you're ready, you let me know. I can go on with my life. This is one thing that parents kind of get tied up in is, well, I need to fix it right now. I need them to, they earned a consequence. They need to do it right now, right? But do they really? Is it really on fire? Does it feel like it emotionally because you don't want to have to think about it anymore? And then you get in that power struggle that turns into ugly and everybody's hurt and frustrated because you feel like it's urgent. But if you look back over those situations you have had, and we've all had them, I've been in deep power struggles with my teenagers. I get it. I can't think of any that were really actually urgent. That the truth was there was like blood, fire, or something illegal was happening, right? Like, those are the kind of things that are actually urgent. And so being able to separate that and say, yeah, let me know when you want to get that done. Just stop the fun until it happens. Great. Yeah, in the back. Sure. So actually in the bag that I brought, we have a bunch of fidgety kind of things like zippy bracelets and poppy things. So that fight or flight, maybe having an area, like a little spot at your house where you say, you know what, when you start feeling like that. So one of the things, especially, how old? Okay. All applicable. So one of the things that we don't do is ask them to learn, how does that feel? So before I get to fight or flight, right? Maybe I start getting to balled fist first. Maybe I'm clenching my jaw. Maybe my stomach feels a little tight. Kids describe this as, I don't know, my face feels hot and red, or like my hands feel tingly. Like if you ask them, how do you feel before you get to the point of going off the cliff, right? What's happening in your body? Have them start recognizing that. Okay, at the point where you start feeling tight fists, or whatever they tell you is them. And I've heard all kinds of things from kids. Little kids, it's really fun to lay them out on the ground, draw a body in sidewalk chalk or on a big piece of butcher paper and have them draw for you where that feels in their body. But the reality is having them have some self-awareness of what's going on. They don't have a clue, right? Not your 5-year-old and not your teen, like nowhere in between, none of them have a clue of what's happening. They go from 0 to 100. But the truth is no one goes from 0 to 100. Sometimes it happens really quickly, but still 0 to 100 has some space. And so if they start recognizing in their body what's happening, and then you give them a coping skill. So I'm going to give all of you a coping skill today that can work for tiny kids all the way to big grown-ups, and I want you to all do it with me. So I want you to imagine your favorite hot food, right? Nobody's eating warm, hot, cozy food when they're in fight or flight. So this kind of helps take you out of it. When you imagine that, your favorite food. Here's your bowl. So I want you to bring your bowl of that food up to your face. Go ahead, you have to do it. I'm going to wait for all of you. And I want you to smell it and then blow on it to cool it off. And I want you to do that 3 times. So I call this smelling your soup. And it's a coping skill that works really well with tiny kids because kids have a very hard time understanding, preschoolers. Breathe in through your nose and out through your mouth, right? And that's what we're doing. 3 deep breaths in through your nose, out through your mouth. That actually tells that flight or flight system in your brain, there is an emergency. Without doing something like that, it takes about 20 minutes to go from 100 back down to 10. Not 0, but probably, 40, right? Back down to where we can talk about it. With doing something like that, it can be almost immediate. So a coping skill like that, like a deep breathing exercise, is a great thing. So I teach this to adults all the time, right? Because there's a few things that tie into that. You can imagine that smell. What's your favorite thing? Lasagna, chicken soup. One little kid said, I like hot shrimp. Great, hot shrimp. So whatever that is, right? You can imagine that smell. That takes you down out of that fight or flight response. You can imagine that taste. That takes you down out of that fight or flight response. You have the physical thing of breathing in through your nose and out through your mouth at least 3 times. That brings you down out of that fight or flight response. And so when you see your child getting upset after you've talked to them about what's happening in their body, you say, now's a really good time to use your soup. And if they will stop and take some deep breaths, you immediately reward. Hey, great job. Because you used your soup, and instead of getting really mad, you can stay up an extra 10 minutes tonight. Find an immediate reward that's important to that child and reward that. Even if they're like, still so mad. It's great, right? We're still going to reward the fact that they're trying, and they're going to get better at it. And so that's what you want to do, is find some things. Maybe have a corner of your house. Okay, so you have a couple choices. You can use your soup. You can go sit on the beanbag in your calm down spot. There's some sensory toys that I can play with. You can punch a pillow. You can blow up a balloon. Like maybe have a few things there that they can go and do to calm themselves down. That also works really well. But the problem with those things are really great at home, but then at school, I don't have a pillow to punch, and nobody's going to give me a balloon at the grocery store when I'm mad, right? And so a deep breathing exercise is really great. Now, don't do this at work. People are going to think you're nuts. But imagine it in your head, right? As grown-ups, we can imagine, I'm just going to take 3 deep breaths, and I'm imagining that food that I love the very best, whatever that might be, apple pie, I don't know, and that those things are going to help bring me back down from fight or flight. The other thing that's really important when it's kids that are becoming super escalated, don't join the chaos, bring the calm. So in those moments, it's the most important that if you need to take 3 deep breaths before you go address it, it's actually not on fire, right? Unless that kid is literally putting their hand in a fire or trying to kill themselves or doing something really dangerous, even saying to your child, you know what? This is actually starting to make me feel upset. I'm going to take 3 deep breaths and calm down, and then we can talk about that, right? That's great modeling. Let them know that you're doing those things too, that the things that you want them to do. Okay, yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yep. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep. So you don't teach her that when she's already escalated, right? You teach her that 3.5, you teach her that when you're giving her a bath. All right, you know what? So tell me about when you get so mad and you run to your room. Tell me about that. How does that feel in your body? So you talk to her about that, and then you practice those skills with, and this is true for any skill that you're going to practice. I'm not going to show up and be like, hey, now's a really good time to, let me teach you about soup, when you're already flipping out and tell me you hate me and you don't even understand and blah, blah, blah. So you practice those things in neutral times so that she has a better chance of doing that when she's escalated. It's like learning to ride a bike on flat road, and then there's a chance you're going to be able to go up a hill, right? But if you try to teach on the hill, no one's going to be successful. And so teaching in calm times, 2 things about what she's telling you. From this, I know kids who feel unloved, who don't believe they're loved, who don't believe they're cared about, never say, I hate you, you don't understand, you don't even love me. They never say that because they're afraid it's true. Kids who are saying that to you, that you're their safe place. So when kids are saying, I hate you, you're the worst, all my other parents' friends are better, la, 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 You're doing a great job. Let's see, how much time do I have? Okay, yes. Nobody loves you. Nobody says nobody loves me if they don't feel loved. I see kids every day that aren't loved, that have really, really unbelievably hard circumstances, and they don't yell, nobody loves me. Kids who are loved feel very safe in saying that. And they know that you love them. And so that's going to be your trigger. And you're going to say, well, of course I love you. I wouldn't have spent $5,000 for your orthodontics if I didn't love you. Right. And then you're going to have this conversation with them where you're totally logic and reasoning. Right. And how often has that worked out that your kid goes like this? Oh, you know what? That makes sense. You're right. So sorry. Never. Never. Don't get in those power struggles. Nobody loves me. I hate you. Yeah, I hate you. You don't even know. You don't even care. You blah, 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 blah. All of that. RSVP, unable to attend that power struggle. Walk away from that 100 times. Right now you're arguing. If you continue to argue with me, you'll earn a consequence. I'm happy to talk to you about this when we can do it calm. And I'm going to leave. I'm not going to keep standing there and having this. You're never going to win that. Stop getting in it. Okay, one last person. And I'll stick around. If you have other things, you can come talk to me. That's hard. So, because she lost her best friend. And her younger brother, and there is a different bond, right? A daddy, daughter, mother, son bond. Those are different for sure. I would do this. I would find ways to have one-on-one time with her. I would find ways to reinforce her with things that she wants to do. So maybe, hey, great job doing your chore right away. Because you did that, I have 30 minutes. Let's do something together. What do you want to do? Find ways to really reinforce her with that one-on-one time with you so that she feels really connected. Okay? I think we're out of time. I just want to say that as all of you laugh when I say if you're being told that you're hated and that nobody loves you, you don't love your kids and you love one more than the other, all of those things, your kids are safe. They're emotionally safe and you're doing a really, really good job. I encourage you to really try to raise your praise. Praise, 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 praise 4 times for every time that you criticize. It's hard, but it absolutely will really connect you to your kids. When you're praising, make sure that you're telling them things that are important to them. What makes mommy happy when you do that? No one gives a crap if you're happy. It's true. I'm sorry, your kids don't care. They're not like, I'm wondering if mom's happy and fulfilled in her life. No one cares. What I care, when you look at your kids' foreheads, think there's tattooed on the front. What's in it for me? Tell them what's in it for them. What matters to them? Tie those things that they're doing right, why they should do it more, into something that's important for them. And you'll get more. You'll be happier. You'll have stronger relationships. And I leave that with you in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.